Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Dalmar, together with my co-host, Mark Rowan at Just Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com. As you can see here, columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I'm having a lot of fun doing all three assignments. The Jewish Press column is called Albany Beat, and I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. But someone who definitely relates to the Jewish community here in Albany County is our guest today, Sam Fein, who is Jewish. Welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you.
You represent a really squirrely type of district that goes all the way from the water all the way up to Delaware Avenue where you live and everything in between.
Yeah.
So you have several different neighborhoods and neighborhood associations that you have to deal with. So welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
Because you were here as when you first got elected and we talked to you. So now we want to see 6 months later, is this the dream that you thought it was always be?
Yeah, really loving it so far. I'd say it's everything I hoped for it to be.
No, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work out that way. Are you part of that reform caucus that was started by Chris Higgins and a few others?
Well, originally a while back when the caucus was formed, I did join it, but I guess I'd say I haven't been involved much since then.
Are you rescinding your membership?
I mean, it's not really a formal membership, but I just haven't been involved since what I like to do is I like to stay independent, worry about what my constituents want, do what's best for my district, and try to stay out of getting involved in different factions. So
well, I thought this was a takeoff of what the Senate has with the Independent Democratic Conference, and that they were trying to be independent. Chris Higgins works in the Senate, so he kind of has this IDC thing in his blood, but
well, I don't know if that was the goal. I know the press pegged it that way. I don't know if that was the goal at the beginning. I initially joined because it was a platform that had a lot of good reforms, but I haven't been involved since because I don't like the idea of being pegged into one faction. People in that faction, they want you to vote a certain way, and I feel that sometimes people in the Reform Coalition vote the way I agree with. Sometimes they don't, and I like to be independent.
Mark was saying that you're a Jewish, politician. On the other hand, your area is really not too Jewish, and now that you've had a number of months to mingle with the people, how do they take you? I mean, how do they? Different kind of people. But I mean, we're all Americans, I know, but sometimes there is a little bit of a friction between different kind of peoples.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's not a very Jewish area, although, as I think you both mentioned before, it historically was a Jewish area in Albany. I do have family history going back to this district, businesses in the district, and family members who lived in the district. But, I think I actually had a lot of interaction with people in my district throughout campaigning, going door to door, which is really how I won people. I was able to have conversations with people, explain to them my viewpoints, and people believed in me because of that, because I think that's what people really want. And since then, I've had more interactions, and I think as you said, we're all Americans. I think I've been able to get along with people in my district very well, regardless of what background or race, religion they are. As you know, it's a majority-minority district, so the majority of the residents are minorities, and I think I've built a lot of close relationships with a lot of people in my district. No,
I think that's important. I mean, when you say that ultimately that, that we have non-Jewish representatives in the Jewish area, and, we all get along, they respect us, and, they come on to Jewish View, to tell us about, they belong to the JCC or whatever have you. And really, it's like you say, no one's should care about that much, either the color of their skin or their religion or their race. Hey, do you represent my views or not? And if you do, then you're the person for me.
Yeah, I think that's really what matters most is, are you going to fight for the people in your district? Do you care about the issues that are important to them? And are you going to really put in the effort to make sure you keep people informed about what's going on?
So it's not where, when an issue or a bill comes up in the county legislature, you vote the way your constituents would want, or do you see it as, well, they elected me, so now I'm going to make the judgment that's best for them?
Well, I guess that's always kind of a debate people have about what an elected representative is supposed to do, and I think it's you have to balance many different things. You have to balance what do you think, if you polled your constituents, what would they say? Mm-hmm. You also have to keep in mind that you were elected, they elected you to make decisions that you think is best for them. So you have to weigh that, and then also you have to weigh that you're not only thinking about your constituents, although my constituents are my number one priority, but you have to think about what's best for the county as a whole. So I think there's always many different factors to balance, but generally my number one thought is what do my constituents want? What would be best for them?
And number two is what you think, and number three is what's good for the county?
I guess so. I mean, I don't know if
order?
I generally don't, think it out and rank all these things, but generally what my constituents want is what's best for them.
Okay.
I haven't had a conflict where I've felt, my constituents would say they want this, but this wouldn't be best for them. I think people generally, people know what they want, and that's generally what's best for them.
What are the big issues, would you say, for your people
Ban the box.
area?
Yeah, well, I can talk about that. A new law that I just proposed would ban the box. It's called the Albany County Fair Chance Act. So all jobs with Albany County government, we would no longer ask the question on the job application about people's criminal history. So my district, I think that's very important to people in my district. There's a lot of people with. There's people
with criminal history.
There's people with criminal history.
They say the African American, that 50%, some crazy percentage, 50% between 18 and 35-year-old African males saw some prison
it's a
time
very high
incredible.
statistic. I know African Americans are put in prison at much higher rates than whites, Hispanics too, and I think it's we have an unjust criminal justice system that's led to this situation, and so my district, I think people are more negatively affected by this. There's also a lot of statistics they show, whites and blacks use drugs at the same rates, but blacks end up in prison at much higher rates for the same. They get arrested more for the same crime, go to jail for longer. So, we have this unfair system. So yeah, people in my district, I'd say, are much more impacted than whites are, and people in other districts. Although I think this is something that will help help people of whatever background.
One of my 10 jobs is going to prison, and of course it's always going to be both ways. Some people they robbed and they're going to keep on going, or you're not going to get 100% people turning to good citizens. On the other hand, guys are pleading with me, they really, I don't know what's in a person's heart, I couldn't see what's in their, they're talking to me. And they just, they made a dumb mistake when they were 18, 19, and they want to reform themselves and they want to be a good person. But like you say, they get such a black mark against them that they said they can't even work in a supermarket, stocking shelves because, they're a felon because they had some drugs or whatever. So they were playing around with drugs, and now their whole life is totally screwed up.
There's definitely a lot of people who make a mistake. They serve their time, or they get their sentence. They serve their time. They want to change. They want to make an honest living, feed their family, and they can't get a job. And I'm sure some of them, because of that, they go back to crime, and then they go back to prison. So,
but let me, I don't know if you heard, but you've been the chatter on talk radio regarding this.
I think it was on
because
WAMC.
Well, WGY, Talk 1300. You've been all over the radio. Everyone's been chit-chatting about this.
I haven't even heard.
Oh, well, I go on their websites. I think they got
He's
podcasts.
a news reporter.
Yeah.
Knows all the news, the television.
But if you go ahead and don't have to disclose this in the beginning, then until what, after you're already hired?
Yeah, well, how it would work is you'd be offered a conditional offer of employment. Then the employer, Albany County, could do a background check.
Right.
And then if they discovered a criminal history, they could then, depending on
so what's the difference? They find it out sooner or later.
Well, because currently you get the application, you have to check right off the bat that you have a criminal history, and then oftentimes they look at your application, they toss it out because employers get so many applications. It's easy to toss out the ones with criminal history, so they don't even get that initial consideration. Once, if you've already made it through the interview process, you've proven your qualifications, they like you, they offer you the job, then they discover a criminal history, then I think it's much more likely that the employer will stick with you, and actually they have to actually have a legitimate reason not to hire you. So it's not just any, and then the employee has the ability to appeal that if they do withdraw that offer of employment. So I think it's a good law because it actually, I think it's very fair to both sides. It gives the person, the applicant, looking for a job, a fair chance to get in the door, get that interview, be considered based on his or her qualifications, and it also gives the employer the opportunity to still inquire about a criminal history, because that's something I think is a legitimate concern for employers.
But when Albany County goes through this process of hiring someone, and then they find out through their process that this person has a criminal history, and it's conditional hire. So they could dismiss him.
They could withdraw that offer of employment and
without any penalty to the county or without any lawsuit or anything.
Well, then there would be a process where that applicant could appeal.
Well, what? I mean, shouldn't the employer have the right to hire who they want to hire, and they don't want someone with a criminal history?
There actually is a state law banning discrimination based on criminal history. The problem is it's very hard to prove that you weren't hired because you checked that off on the application.
Right.
So there's actually a state law banning this type of discrimination, and there's certain things prescribed in the state law that certain reasons why an employer could not hire someone because of criminal history. So those are the parameters for why an employer may withdraw an offer of employment.
When is this going before the full legislature? Because you keep saying you proposed.
So I proposed this. So last night it was on the agenda, and then we had a legislative meeting last night, and then it was sent to the Law Committee and the Personnel Committee. And so it'll go through those committees, and then we don't have an exact date yet, but in the next, next month or two. But
okay.
So there will be a public hearing on it first.
Now, when you were in committee and they were discussing this in committee whether to move it forward or can it, did you?
Well, it has not gone through committee yet. So.
No, but in caucus, they discussed it in caucus, whether to move it through the committee process or not.
Any bill that is introduced will go on the agenda.
Not always. I mean, it hasn't always happened that way.
I believe that's how the process works
now.
Yeah, I mean, in caucus, there wasn't much discussion. I said my viewpoints on it, but it was already on the agenda once we get to caucus.
Have you heard from your other 38 colleagues in the county legislature as to whether they say, hey, look, Sam, come on, let's not do this?
No, I've heard. I've actually gotten a lot of support. So I introduced the bill with many co-sponsors, including leadership, the chairman, Sean Ward, Majority Leader Frank Camiso, and then members of part of Majority Minority District Caucus, and these are all legislators who represent majority minority districts.
Well, you would think they'd be for it, yeah.
And so they were very supportive. And then I've had some legislators reach out and express support since then, and so you'll see their names soon. Some people have asked to be co-sponsors on the bill, so their names will be added.
Okay. And what about community interest groups? Any opposition from community interest groups?
So far, only support. Dr. Alice Green from the Center for Law and Justice came out to speak in favor of it, and I suspect we'll get more community
But you didn't hear any negative. I mean, even on the Twitter sphere.
I saw some negative Facebook comments. I think with any proposal, even good proposals, you're going to get some negative comments. Nothing. Even things that are popular, there's always people who have negative views, and some people have legitimate views, and I think some people also don't fully understand the law and are just quick to jump and to be negative about things. But
so it says one of those negative comments on your Facebook page. I won't read the whole thing, but it's from this guy Frank. This will surely get the county sued for a bad decision on so many levels. and then you chimed in and gave your reason after that. So you defended yourself there.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I disagree with that. I think this law protects the county as well as the applicant, because the county has the ability to still perform a background check. Certain positions are exempt according to state law, such as jobs dealing with children, jobs dealing with the mentally or physically disabled, the elderly, people going into people's homes, such as people working in the social services department. So there's certain law enforcement. So certain jobs are exempt, for good reason, and those,
Now, there's a member of the Albany Common Council who we had on the show. When he was on the show, I said, well, you've been in the office for just several months. What did you do before? And he goes, well, I spent 9 years in federal prison.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute. You went to prison first and then you got elected? Isn't that the
It's
other
the
way
opposite
around?
of how it usually
You're supposed to be elected and then go to
Yeah.
federal prison? And he was, and he laughed and he thought
Yeah.
it was funny. And we, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
he had a second chance.
that's a
and-
good example. People
Yeah.
deserve second chances.
And
you
the
know?
voters voted him in,
Yeah.
regardless. So,
And I'm sure, I'm not sure who you're speaking of, but I'm sure he's doing a good job for his constituents, and people, I think that's a great example of how, people can change their lives after making a mistake, and how people deserve a second chance. And I think everyone deserves the opportunity to at least be considered for their qualifications. I think once you serve your time, you shouldn't carry this for your
Burden.
entire life, this burden, yeah. So,
no,
yeah.
look, I have more people
Yeah.
than I care to know who are ex-cons, who are finding it so difficult now
Yeah.
to find a job that they go into real estate. That's like the fallback,
Yeah.
because no one questions a realtor. You got a
Yeah.
house to sell, you want to sell the house, that's it.
Yeah.
That seems to be the fallback job for ex-cons.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this downsizing of the county
Okay.
legislature. You have a position on this? You're only in office for a short period of time, but you already have a position whether
Yeah.
it should be downsized or not?
I feel that we should not downsize the legislature. So,
Because
well,
we're the largest.
we are the largest,
I
but
mean, Dutchess County
but
is
I
larger
don't
than us
see,
and has 19. And
so we're the largest, but I don't see why that's a problem. I think 39 legislators, we work well with 39 legislators. I don't see, the thing is, people come in, some people say, actually almost everyone who's come in and spoke at the public hearings has been against downsizing, but people who speak in favor of it, I haven't really heard a reason why it's bad that we have 39 legislators. So I think that more representatives actually is more representative government. You have more responsive government. I represent as you mentioned, many different neighborhoods in the city of Albany, and I make the effort to get out to all the neighborhood association meetings, be in touch with my constituents, and I think that's important. And as the number of residents in the district grows, the harder it is to do that, and the less responsive legislators will be when a constituent calls with an issue. So I think it's better to have more democracy, a more representative government. And I guess the one argument I hear people make against for downsizing is the cost, but
$1 million could be saved
but
a year.
But what they show is this: if we downsize, I think, to 25, maybe the average person would save $1 on their tax bill. But a lot of these studies show actually county legislatures that have downsized in the state, their costs go up because once they downsize the legislators, they need to increase the staff to reach out, to make up for the
How many
constituent
people do you
outreach.
have on your staff?
We have I have 0 on my staff. We have a staff for the majority office.
Right.
But a lot of county legislatures, they have
Personal
full-time
staff,
legislators.
right.
They make higher salaries. They have full-time staff. Some of them have cars.
Right.
And I don't think we should have that. I like the current system where we
Right.
have smaller districts, more legislators, but we personally have that interaction with our
So
constituents.
here's the inside scoop, in case you haven't known, is that if they downsize the legislature to 25, the city of Albany, which has 15 seats now, 13 seats now in the city of Albany,
Yeah.
they would then have fewer
Yeah.
seats, which would make the city of Albany less important or less impactful in the county legislature. And the city of Albany's, the folks like yourself, are the ones holding back and are looking to keep it the way it is.
Well, that may be true. One of the things that's concerned to me is right now there's 5 majority-minority districts, so I've joined with majority-minority district caucus.
Right.
We have all been strongly opposed to it because the number of majority-minority seats will go down.
Right.
And
But that's what happens. Everything will go down.
Yeah.
So it's not, on a proportional basis, it wouldn't be
Proportionally, yeah, there would still be
the same proportion of
most likely a
seats.
similar proportion.
Yeah.
But still, there would be less, less voices from the minority community. And another thing I'd like to bring up is that, people living in majority-minority districts, I think, are much more reliant on county services than, let's say, people living in the suburbs like Bethlehem. And so I think it's more important for in the city of Albany, and especially majority-minority districts, for people to have more legislators, have the ability to have a responsive legislator get in touch if there's a problem. And I have constituents reach out to me who have issues, issues getting county services and, various issues like that.
Do you find yourself being more on the liberal end of the spectrum or conservative end of the spectrum, or?
Politically, I consider myself liberal.
Liberal.
Yeah.
Fiscally and socially?
Yeah, I'd say economically and socially. Obviously in the being a legislator, I have to always be concerned. People are concerned about tax rates. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't, want to spend unlimited amounts of money and raise everyone's taxes, but I do strongly believe that we, in social welfare, strongly believe that we need to, spend that, those who have the means have to give back to help those who don't have the means, and we have to make sure to help lift those up who are at the bottom of the economic ladder. So I strongly believe in that.
And, okay, so you were also at had some sort of event, or there was some news conference or something regarding gun safety?
Yeah.
Now, you would think that everyone would be in favor of gun safety, except those who use the guns illegally. But what's going on with this issue that they had to have an event for? Well,
that was an event hosted by one of my colleagues, Legislator Wanda Willingham.
Yeah.
And, there's definitely an issue with gun violence in the city of Albany. And so it was a community discussion about gun safety where the sheriff was there, the chief of police, judges. It was, a good discussion where they showed people guns, and so we could learn about actually how guns worked. Talked about some of the challenges, some of the laws,
Yeah.
The SAFE Act, some of the challenges with getting illegal guns off the street. I think most people, especially in the capital region, in Albany, and my district, are for gun safety. Obviously, I'm sure nationally, it's one of the most controversial issues.
Right.
In my opinion, there's a lot of common sense gun reforms that we should be doing nationally that aren't happening because of inaction in Congress. But we, that was one of the other things discussed, is that one of the problems is it's really has to be, we need federal legislation because, we have great gun control laws in New York, but that doesn't stop someone from going to a neighboring state with less restrictive gun laws and bringing them into New York.
So this was sort of like an informational?
It was kind of an informational session, a community discussion, talking about, next steps, how to push back against, illegal guns, some of the challenges. I think it's just good to have these community discussions about important issues. People in the community, I think, appreciate when elected officials go out and talk to them about the issues, and also I think people and I think it also it helps us as elected officials hearing from people in the community what their thoughts are, and sometimes it gives us ideas of maybe action we can take. It's tough at the local level, of course, but with gun safety, because it really.
So did you talk about separating the bullets from the weapon itself when you're home? Did you talk about these locks that you could put on the gun? Did you talk about having the guns kept away from access to children? Was there anything like that? Yeah,
well, there was a discussion about, there's a law in the city of Albany about that you have to lock up your guns. So there was talks about that, and how that ways to properly be safe with guns.
You don't own a gun?
I don't own a gun.
Have you ever shot a gun?
Yes.
Okay. Have you in a target practice, or?
Yes.
Okay. Was it scary? Was it unsettling?
It was. I wouldn't say scary. It was interesting. I wanted to learn about what. I grew up in the suburbs. I never really been a gun person, so, I wanted to learn about what it's all about. And I think there's a lot of people in this country who like guns, and it's important to try to understand all sides, where people are coming from on all sides.
Was that the one time, was it recent that you did this?
I think it was a year or two ago. Yeah, it was, it was the one time.
So that was the one time, and then you didn't say, this is really,
Well, I mean, it was. I guess it was kind of enjoyable. I'm not, really excited. I'm not going to go to the gun range every weekend, but if there was an opportunity again, maybe I'd try it out.
What about this new van for animal emergencies? You were at some sort of news conference about that, or?
Yeah, actually, I didn't end up attending the news conference for that, but that was a van that was purchased to, I think, help some of the animals, and I contributed some money towards that.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, because that didn't cost any...
Yeah, that was actually a lot of individual legislators and elected officials.
That was drug money that paid for that, I guess, so...
Yeah, and also legislators gave personal money towards that.
So let's follow up on some of the topics that we talked about last time you were here, because I want to see if any progress is made or whatever. Oil trains, we don't hear about them pretty much, we don't hear about them too much in the papers, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, there was a big rally, it was a few months ago.
Has it quieted down about the oil trains, or?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that are still concerned with it, and rightfully so. I mean, one of the biggest issues with one thing I've been involved with is it's actually not in my district, but the Ezra Prentice Public Housing.
Mm-hmm.
They have two issues. Behind them are the oil trains that come by, very close to them. On the other side, on South Pearl Street, they have these diesel trucks that come, and there's hundreds or sometimes 1,000 a day. So and so there's, I guess, two issues with the oil trains. You never know, one could derail and explode, and it could be deadly. It's happened in other places, like in Lac-Mégantic, Quebec.
Well, I heard that my idea of building a fire-resistant wall has really gotten some traction.
I mean, that might be a good idea, but the other side of the issue is that these oil trains, along with the diesel trucks, are spewing toxic chemicals. It's going right by people's homes. People live here. Kids are playing on the playground all day, and so it's a health. They didn't choose. It's public housing, so a lot of these people.
There's other public housing in the city. They could choose to live somewhere else.
You don't. There's limited public housing, and there's always going to be people living there unless we make new public housing somewhere else.
Well, this is federal public housing, so it's nothing that the county can do. These are federal. There's some federal bureaucrats who thought it was a good idea to put a housing development next to the oil trains on a route 32, where you got oil. Tankers
it was definitely a bad decision by the federal officials, or whoever was responsible. And that's one of the things. It's limited what the county or the city can do. I think we can still try to, have an influence as elected officials and do whatever we can on that. But yeah, I think one of the big issues is these trains and diesel trucks are, it's toxic chemicals. There's kids growing up here. It's not their choice to live, to live there. I'm sure they'd rather live somewhere else, but they don't have the means to do so.
Right.
So
which committee? You didn't know which committees you were going to be on when you were here last. Which committees were you given?
So I'm on the Health Committee, I'm on the Civic Center Committee, and I'm the Deputy Chair of the Court Facilities Committee.
And why? What's going on with court facilities? I thought we were fine with that.
We are. Nothing's actually going on at the moment with court facilities, but you never know in the future.
That's true.
But the Health Committee is...
I thought we were fine with court facilities. We upgraded all our courts. So.
Yeah, currently nothing is going on. But there is a lot going on in the Health Committee and the Civic Center Committee.
Right.
You may have been following. The Times Union Center is going through a $20 million renovation that we just approved.
That's tied to the other convention.
The convention. Well, it's tied. There is a walkway connecting, and we're actually responsible for a portion of that walkway. So it is tied to it, but that's a state project, and this is a county project. But it is tied in a way because they're going to be connected, and they're both being done at the same time.
And people who are going to be at the convention center are going to utilize the Times
Yeah.
Union Center when the convention center might not be big enough for
Yeah.
an entire convention. The overflow will also be at the Times Union Center, similar to what they do
Yeah.
with the Egg at the Empire State Plaza, and the overflow is over at the TU Center
Yeah.
for car shows or
And-
something like that. You know.
Yeah, and we hope that it'll bring more business to the area. There's with the
But there's
renovation
no
Times Union
kosher
Center.
restaurant or kosher catering in the new Civic Convention Center. I got to get Gavin Donahue on the show.
No kosher. Well, I don't know if there's a market for that, but
Of course there would be. There's no kosher facility between Muncie and Montreal.
yeah. Well,
So, of course there
there's the
would
kosher
be.
price shopper, but
No, a catering, like
Yeah,
someone wants
no,
a
I know
wedding,
what
a bar
you're
mitzvah.
yeah.
I mean, you know, there's
Well,
no,
there probably should be one. I'm not sure if the Times Union Center is the ideal location for it.
well,
but-
the convention center that they're
Yeah.
building new, they should have built in a kosher kitchen, and they haven't, and for catering purposes. So
oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's what my-
But there is a Johnny Rockets going to the Times Union Center.
Not my cup of tea. So, Health Committee, Zika virus at all concerned with the Health Committee?
You know,
really?
I don't think that's really, not to my memory, that hasn't come up as a major issue.
What's big on the Health Committee, the one issue that might come to mind?
One issue. Good question.
Okay, so that's as active as the court facilities?
No, we're pretty
committee?
active. So a lot of the stuff, a lot of the stuff that goes through the health committee are, money a lot of the money comes from the state.
Right.
And a lot of the money towards addiction treatment.
Right.
You know, obviously that's a big issue now with the heroin crisis. So some of the stuff going through the health committee has been related to
Okay.
that. I guess actually, one of the biggest things that went through it is we voted to raise the age to purchase tobacco to 21.
Right.
So that went through the health committee.
Paul Miller, yeah,
Paul
the
Miller,
freshman.
that was his first bill. He was a sponsor of that. I was a co-sponsor. I was very supportive of it.
Okay.
And it's interesting. It looks like Schenectady is likely to follow.
Yeah. All right, well, keep up the good work.
Yeah.
What can I tell you?
All right,
It's-
Sammy, you're only
Rabbi will
doing
give you a
good things
blessing.
over here. Give you a blessing that
Yeah.
you're young and you have, you're doing a lot already, a lot of accomplishments, and continue what you're doing and with great success.
Continued success, Sam.
Yeah. Thank you.